Alright, Chapter 3. In this chapter, we'll go over the elements of a permit required confined space program. So in this program, we'll start with the objectives. Understand the elements of the permit required confined space written program. Explain the differences in each one of the sectors. And then overview the components of the entry. So first, in the general industry, the program itself, you'll see it's got the introduction where you should have your company policy, everything else related to the permit itself, the program, what your procedures will be as best as you can will be outlined in this, or your policy on when to enter a space that is permit required and how it's going to be done. Do your definitions, identify the confined spaces, notification and warnings, placing those signage where it should be, especially after you said, all right, this is a permit required confined space. In general industry and maritime, you're going to post a sign, and the sign's going to let everyone else know and be aware that, yes, this is the location. In construction, though, you do have a competent person, and the competent person is someone who is there. They know how to anticipate the hazard. They know what to look for. They also know how to mitigate the hazard. And the key to them is that they have the authority to make the prompt corrective actions needed after they find, something that's gone wrong. They could stop work, and so you need to have that stop work authority. And then that is the competent person. So the competent person they define that there is a permit required confined space, then they will place a sign right at that location so that everyone else that's around there will be aware of that. So you're going to identify the hazards, equipment for the entry, and equipment for the rescue is going to be part of that written plan. And then you're also going to have your evaluation of the space. Usually that's going to be that flow chart that says if this condition is there, and this condition, and this condition, it's going to lead you to if you need a permit for that space. The permits themselves, you decide the authorized entrance and attendees, the supervisors, your specific procedures, how are you going to communicate, rescue procedures step by step, closure of the permit, and then whatever coordination you need to do with the subcontractors. That's all going to be part of your written plan. Review it at least annually, and you're going to have your training and your training documents so that you know for sure everybody's on the same page. So the entry permits will have the permit space that's going to be entered, the purpose of the entry, and the space should be actual dimensions. So you lay out the actual dimensions of, this is the space, it's this circumference, or it's this, length, width, depth, and if there's any kind of history of the space, that's where you're going to have on your permit. The purpose of the entry, and then also you want to put down the date of the authorization and the duration of the entry in that permit. Who are the attendants? Who are the entrants? Who is the supervisor at that location? Have everybody sign off on it. What are the hazards that are identified? And then what's the equipment that you're using? Are you using for your gas monitoring and your testing? So that's all going to be on that permit. Isolation devices, if it's lockout, tag out, whatever it is, all that's in the permit. Communication, that's the procedures of how you're going to communicate with each other is there. And then again, you're going to really try to formulate the rescue. How are you going to do your rescues? So as you're taking through that, that's truly what your permits are going to look like. Each permits are a little different. The difference between the maritime versus general industry versus construction, you can pause a permit in construction like mentioned before. General industry, you can't. You have to reissue a new one there. And you want to really make sure that you're going to have that space or enclosure labeled correctly. In construction, definitely you're going to have that labeled by a competent person. They're going to make that designation. So that is the components of the permit required confined space program. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the control of the hazardous energy, which is our chapter 4.